Hello, bonjour, legai, huedak, linjani, salibonani, magadi, mulishani, mulibwanji, habari. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you're joining me from, thank you so much for making the time as always. This one again is going to be pretty interesting. Why? I have asked two amazing gentlemen to join me. We're going to be discussing a topic that is very close to a woman's heart, but also to men. There are some men out there that are finding that it is important to have this conversation. So today with these two gentlemen, they are part of the Ego Wings Consultancy family. These are two gentlemen that are pretty different because they give two different services. One is a John Maxwell accredited coach. So if you're looking for someone that you'd want to see on a platform, you're looking for someone to come and talk to you when you're having a conference, a workshop, a seminar, or just in your organization, this is that gentleman that you need. The other one, on the other hand, is very different. He would rather come to you in your office and help you unpack whatever problems you are having. He's an expert when it comes to media communication. He's an expert when it just comes to diving in and helping you look at your company in ways in which you can get your message out there to your customers. I'm sure all of you are going to agree with me. We are living in a time where we are trying to just understand how to navigate life virtually. A lot of things that we are doing, it's always either via Google, Teams, Skype, you name it. We are doing this all the time. These people have actually spent time to just understand how best to help. So if you're looking to engage them on a one-on-one, because now we can, because now I'm sure wherever you are on the globe, vaccinations are unraveling and are happening. You can actually get in touch with them, or if you even just want them virtually, you can do the same. So what I'm going to do today is pretty different. I'm going to tell you who they are, but I'm going to allow them to just explain what you're going to get when you do want their services. So without further ado, I am going to start by introducing Didier Mbayo. Didier, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning, Candy, and thank you very much for being the host today. And I like the way you introduced me. Well, like Candy says, I'm a John Maxwell accredited coach, speaker, and trainer, and I help people to improve their result. I really enjoy helping people to tap into their potential and become the best version of themselves. So that's pretty much what I do. And I do it through coaching, can be on one-on-one, or it can be through an organization. I can also train, and I can also be a speaker, keynote speaker in one of your conferences that you need on leadership, because I specialize in area of leadership and personal development. Thank you.
Loving it. You see, we haven't even started and I'm just feeling so excited. So the next gentleman and my last gentleman of the panels is actually David Gorin. David, how are you?
Hello, Candy. I'm fine, thanks. Thank you for that introduction. Yes, I mean, basically you summed up what I could offer, except you missed one thing. I'm also a writer. And so if a company or an individual or an organization in any form wishes to have materials for its collateral or ghostwriting services or anything, or creative services, I can also supply those.
Perfect. There you have it. Two amazing gentlemen. So please, if you're looking at just making that difference in your organization, because I'm sure you're wondering, how do you remotivate people? How do you get them to just have that energy again? These are the two gentlemen for you. So the topic that we're going to be discussing this morning is woman empowerment. And like I have said in the two other sessions that I had, you know, it's a topic that when you ask people, you get so many different answers. But I think the answers that always jump at people when you ask them, it's about, you know, a woman wanting to be heard, a woman wanting to be seen, a woman wants to be given an opportunity, the same opportunity that men are given. It is the rights and the laws to be given fairly without any gender bias. And this is what we are discussing today. So I decided to ask these two gentlemen to just help me unpack it from a man's perspective. So it's going to be very interesting. Don't move as I just start to unpack this. So I'm going to start with you, Didier. What jumps at you when you hear woman empowerment? What does it mean to you?
Thank you. That's a good question. Women's empowerment is, for me, it's a woman treated equally as a man. That's how I see it. It's true that we do have challenges in our society today in terms of empowerment of women. But I think for me, if I look at, I think last year there's been some good statistic. Just gonna read some statistic. I think in 2019 and 2020, in senior management role, 29% were filled by women. And that was actually the highest number that, they've recorded last year. And I don't know about this year with COVID, but I expect that probably the number remained the same. And when you look, for example, they give you in Africa, 38% of senior management positions are held by women. So to some extent, women are getting in power in the continent, in Africa. Actually, Africa comes first, as opposed to Europe, which come to, because Africa, we have 38% and Europe, 35%. So that shows you that in Africa, there's a lot of work that is done to empower women, especially in our country, in South Africa. There's a lot of laws that, promote the empowerment of women. But again, sometimes we have laws, we have a framework, but on the practical side, in reality, there's still some challenges in terms of empowering women. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed, because I believe that women should be treated equally. I think the only difference between a man and a woman is the sex, but women have a brain. They have a powerful brain, just like men. So I don't see why there should be, double treatment, because they are very clever as well. So I don't see any difference there.
Thank you for that, Didier. So to you, David, when you hear woman empowerment, what does it say to you? What does it mean to you?
It means a whole range of things, Candy. I think the word itself is quite misleading because, of course, it's rooted in power, empowerment. So one thinks immediately of, raising women up and giving them the levers of power. But I think I'm going to contradict Didier a little bit here. I think there's so much that is lost in that bland word, because I think the lived reality of the vast majority of women, and not only in African countries, but in many so-called first world or developed countries too, the lived reality is very different to the legal framework, So, again, just researching a little bit in preparation for this meeting, whilst it's true that as Didier said, a lot of legal work has been done to raise the status of women in Africa, for example. I think there's no question that the lived reality of the vast majority of women is quite different. So for just a couple of short things, South Africa, I think, has lost 3 million jobs as a result of COVID over the last year or year and a half. And 2/3 of those jobs lost have been women's jobs. There's also, I think, a strange legal situation where the vast majority of people who qualify for our social grants are women who are supposed to, of course, look after the children. The social grants are supposed to go for children. And yet, if you have a social grant for your kids, you're not qualified to get the jobs grant, according to COVID legislation. And so, again, the vast majority of people who've lost out with this strange legal oddity are women. And at the same time, COVID has meant that a lot of women in South Africa, and I think a lot of African countries, have borne the brunt of further responsibilities at home, trying to work from home where they can, but then also being caught in the trap of having to do more homework or housework because they're at home for more hours in the day. And so I think those sorts of realities paint quite a different picture to what we might think is a leveling playing field in terms of the empowerment of women. And I read a fascinating statistic by the World Economic Forum in their 2021 Gender Equality Report, which said that pre-COVID, they estimated it would take 99 years for true global gender parity to emerge. And now because of COVID, they're reckoning it's going to take 136 years. And I was quite devastated by that statistic. You know, another 136 years for proper gender parity to occur. So I think we've got a lot of work to do globally, and yeah, quite sobering actually, those kind of numbers.
Amazing. I love how both of you have unpacked the stats. So we're sort of going to keep it on the same level of the stats that both of you have unpacked. So Didier alluded to 38% in Africa, and then Europe, we had 35%. Then you have sort of zoned it back home. So for all of you listening in to us, the three of us are actually based in South Africa. Didier is based in Johannesburg, and David is based in Cape Town. So 3 million jobs have been lost, and you are on point, of which most of those, it's women. And women are the ones that are really looking after a lot of households. So to the both of you, and I'm gonna zone in on you, David, I'll still stay with you. What do you think needs to be done to ensure that, yes, we've got these job losses, but that women are still considered, that women are given the right to, have jobs? What do you think can be done?
Well, I think it's such a complex question because so many great minds have been applied to that. And I think there's still a state of failure in many instances, but I think it really revolves around perhaps three ambits. So there's the sort of the creation of greater ability amongst women. There's the creation of greater opportunity for them to use their abilities. And then I think there's the issue of dignity as well. And then if you apply those three sort of ambits and you look at the legal frameworks within a country, you look at societal norms within a country, and then you look at perhaps opportunities for market development in a country and with global connections as well, then I think you at least, or we at least, have a framework for how women can be greater empowered in reality going forward. So I think one could use that sort of framework as a basis for that. But of course, I think, Candy, it comes down largely to culture as well. When I say culture, I don't necessarily mean society's culture or a continent's culture. I'm talking more about values and beliefs across business, of course, across society too, across the way the world communicates in its connected state or in digital media. And I think there's still so much work that needs to be done by how could I say, probably by intelligent but also balanced leadership. And I feel, unfortunately, the world lacks leadership in that regard. And so to answer your question, I'm at a bit of a loss, to be honest. I think great minds have the framework created. There's so many documents going, across the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, United Nations. There's a great United Nations report called, I think it's called Development Goals 2030. And one of the rallying cries in the introduction is "Leave no one behind." And I mean, it's not a new document. I think it's about 10 years old, but there's still so much poverty. There's still so much inequality in the world. And so the framework's there, but I think we lack the leadership. That's my conclusion.
Excellent. Actually, David, you've actually set the platform for me in the question that I'm going to ask Didier now. Didier, you are a leadership coach. And David has alluded to it, that, everything I think is going to boil down to leadership. So you, as the leader, and with all the stats that you've given us, what do you think needs to be done? What are people in leadership positions supposed to do in this instance to ensure that women are empowered? Because you've all alluded to it. Yes, we may look like it's 38%, jobs are still being lost. So what can be done, Didier, and what's your advice to people in leadership positions? You are muted, Didier. You are on mute.
Yeah, I will mute myself now. I like what David says because everything fall and rise on leadership. I think it's a quote that John Maxwell usually uses, and I totally believe that we are living in an era of lack of leadership. There's a leadership deficit in the entire world. I think leadership starts with yourself. I mean, like David says, we have great frameworks, but who implement those frameworks are people. So if people, according to the value, do not believe that a woman deserves to be treated equally, then whatever framework you have in place will never be applied 100% as intended by the legislator. So we need people to understand, man's understanding that a woman is my equal partner. We should give them the same, we should afford them the same opportunity that we give to men. And that is a work that needs to happen. And meaning men need to now be trained in the organization, because I think we do have some training about gender bias, unconscious bias, all these trainings that people go through. There need to be a plan. HR need to put a plan to make sure that the men who are in position of leadership actually follow through. Yes, it's good to attend to this training, but there must be a plan. Whoever is in leadership needs to show evidence that in his department is empowering people. And there need to be a measurement. I mean, if you hold a position of a chief legal, whatever position you have, your bonuses, whatever, need to be tied to some extent as to how are you empowering women in your department. And I think that's the only way to get people to start, looking at this issue and putting a lot of attention to it. But as long as it's just on the paperwork, we talk about affirmative action, we talk about number of women that need to be represented, but as long as there's not something that is tied to that person's goal, because remember, anything that needs to be measured are goals. If somebody got a goal as a leader, that he needs to empower X number of women, and even HR through the recruitment process, we have to make sure that in terms of the goals, they do have goals that are tied to empowering women, and the bonuses and the whatever salary increase will be based on that. That you will motivate people now to go ahead and make sure that whatever is in the framework, it's actually put into practice, you see. But I also want to touch on this question from a different point. I have been attending various conferences where I heard women talking themselves that we are not doing enough ourselves. Meaning, in an organization, I've seen that many times. There is a position that is open. Men can apply, women can apply. When you talk to your colleague, women, you ask, did you apply for this position? She said, oh, but I think this is a man's job. Well, so if a woman already is afraid to go ahead and show, empower herself by applying for a position, how would HR, for example, meet the quota and try to, hire this woman? Because if you cannot apply for a job, it's going to be a challenge for someone to recruit you. So women also need to understand that they do have the skills and they are equal to men. They need to apply for jobs just like men apply for jobs. There shouldn't be this mindset, because it's about mindset. Again, like David says, it's a cultural problem, because at home, whatever that girl was fed by his father and mother, that would determine the way she behaves in society. So if she's been told that you are a woman, you cannot be equal to your husband, whatever the mom said, that become a reality to that woman. So the women need to now change. Yes, I understand it's a problem in our society, but women need to stand and say, we need to change this, And I think once women also take, because I like what David says to some extent. He says that the word empowerment is maybe you guys are already, you have power. There's no, I mean, we are equal. So when we talk, you just have to claim your rights. You are equal to a man and stand in a society and start taking step by applying for position, holding yourself as equal to men. Then, to some extent, if we can add the other measurement of goals to the men's job to make sure that they hire more women, then we will be able to have, you know, some fair position where in management, we also 50-50, men's represented and women represented.
So I'm still going to stay with you, Didier, in line with everything that you've just sort of alluded to, where women also need to play their role in organizations. So my question to you is, how can a woman, you know, ascertain herself or demand a position when, to start with, she is not included in that senior position? Because like you said, it starts with the person who's in the senior position to actually, you know, understand that this is a company that needs to have fair play, as in 50-50. But if that is not happening in an organization, for example, let's talk about the boardroom. Let's say in that boardroom, there are 8 people and there's only 1 woman. How is she supposed to pull or you know, state her ground in that boardroom to say, look at me here, I'm the only one? What's your advice? What can a woman who's alone in a situation like that do?
Well, I think that because if I understand your question is about how do you make sure that women are represented now, you know, on any senior management position. But like I said, I mean, whoever hold a position of leadership, if it's a man, they need to be measurement. If also it's a woman, they need to be measurement. So a company, because we've worked for multinational, most of them have a code of conduct. And in the code of conduct, they talk about gender equality. So now this principle need to be cascade and bring down to goals that each department need to achieve. So if we need to hire board members, whoever needs to hire those board members or, you know, give the list of board members, if the goal is there that we need to make sure that it's 50-50, then they will make sure that when they start the process of hiring, they will focus on making sure that we do have that representation. But again, like I said, the biggest problem is, it sounds strange, but I'm telling you what I have seen, where there is a position open. If we work in a multinational and you ask your counterpart, who's a woman, and say, please apply for this position. She say, no, this is a man job. I don't think I can fill those shoes. Well, so now how would you even be considered if you never apply? You see, so those are the things that needs to be really taken into account. But I believe that if you can put measurement and goals for each department, whoever is holding the position, if it's a woman or a man, to make sure that there's enough representation of women, then we can actually achieve that goal. It's not impossible. We can achieve.
I love that. Yeah, please go ahead.
If I can perhaps jump in, yeah. So I think what Didier has raised and pursuant to your question is the issue of self-confidence, or a more sort of academic term is self-efficacy, where anyone, and obviously we're talking about women now, but basically one's self-efficacy is a factor of quite a few inputs. Essentially, there are 2 fundamental drivers. One is when you manage to achieve something, you realize you can do it. And so then when you have to do a similar kind of thing, or you have to do that again, your self-belief is there because you've already done something similar. And so that first hurdle is often the hardest one, but it builds, once you're over that hurdle, it builds your self-efficacy, your self-confidence, your self-belief. And the other one is that inputs into self-efficacy is observing or noticing or reading about or seeing other people like you achieving good things or great things. And so for, I think, a lot of women who may lack self-efficacy or self-belief, if they can observe other women succeeding be it in a business arena or sporting arena or whatever it might be that they're interested in, then that in turn nurtures their self efficacy too, because their thinking goes, well, if she can do it, so can I. And so I think there's quite a lot of potential for women to be empowered by the process of greater networking, if that's probably the right word. You know, so if a woman perhaps networks within her sphere of work, for example, and sees other women succeeding, then that might in turn help grow her self-confidence. And I think, coming back to Didier's point, companies have a lot of responsibility to facilitate those networks. You know, it's not good enough for the CEO of a company to say, well, you know, I'm opening up this job to female applicants. There should be a systemized process whereby women in that company have access to networks beyond the company to grow their self-belief so that they can apply for positions that might become open. So I think, again, coming right back to Didier's point about leadership, there's an issue there with the leaders in business taking more initiatives around helping women to grow their self-efficacy in all spheres, not just to rely on outside structures.
I really, really am enjoying this conversation with you, gents. So David, I'll still stay with you. Do you think, you know, you, I think, alluded to the fact that it's a cultural thing, and you broke down culture in how you were alluding to your answer. So do you think this stems from saying it's a man's world? Do you think that maybe that is part of the problem? And also just to the answers that you and Didier just gave now, do you think that maybe that is what is really holding the women? Because look, at the end of the day, we as women also need to look at ourselves, like Didier has helped now to say, we need to also play our role. So do you feel that because it's always been said it's a man's world, that has sort of stayed in our minds? Do you think that's one of the problems?
I definitely think that's a problem, and it's overwhelmingly true. But I think, Candy, the question when it's asked is often misses perhaps a couple of textured nuances, one of which might be, for example, that even when a woman is in power, problems persevere. You know, so I'm trying to think of an example, but probably a good one closer to our African home is if we look at Liberia. You know, Ellen Sirleaf Johnson was the president of Liberia for, I think, 12 years between 2006 to 2018, if I'm correct. And she was essentially unable to uplift Liberia in any meaningful way. I mean, it's still one of the world's poorest countries. And so it isn't always about the fact that it's a man's world, because sometimes a woman can be in a position of power, but for various reasons which are quite deeply rooted in perhaps a whole range of things. And I'm going to raise one: capitalism. You know, capitalism has ugly sides to it. And colonialism, of course, the remnants of colonialism. I mean, sticking with Liberia as an issue, I mean, she was really unable to break the bonds of deep-rooted colonial issues to free, you know, structures within her country, which would liberate, you know, women's access to capital, women's access to resource. And so I think, coming back to your question, Kanye, in a roundabout way, yes, it's still very much a man's world, but there are factors which are causing those foundations to be very difficult to break, even when women are in positions of power. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, thank you. No, you have. So Didier, to you, also, please, I'd like you to bear in mind the answer that David has just given now when I asked to say, does one feel it's a man's world? So my question to you is, what have you done in your own space as Didier to help, you know, the awareness of women empowerment? And also, what have you done to pull men up? Because from what I'm hearing from the both of you, you are extremely aware that you know, we are in the 21st century and we shouldn't even be having this conversation. A woman is not a threat. A woman is someone that you need on board. So Didier, just like I said, bearing in mind what David has said, and in your own space, what have you done to empower women, and what conversation have you had with men? How are you pulling men to think the way you are thinking, especially with your leadership, knowledge and know-how?
Thank you, Candy. I think I just want to add a little bit on what Deb says. When you say it's a man's word, I don't believe it, because you have Angela Merkel, who's the chancellor in Germany, and she's doing an amazing job. We had Margaret Thatcher. I always remember her. She was a great prime minister. And the list goes, there's been a powerful women. We had Mother Teresa. We had women who actually made a huge difference, okay? So in reality, look at statistic. I mean, women's outnumber men. I mean, we can't, it's a women's word. Let's put it this way, it's not a man's word, okay? Yes, we have challenges in terms of the culture. Some men still fight against women being in leadership position, but there's so much example of powerful women who have brought tremendous change, and I strongly believe that women need to really up their game, need to be more confident, because I think the biggest problem is about confidence. How many times do I come across a woman, very smart, she's well educated, but she still doesn't believe in herself? That is something that women need to work on. Men's, when we apply for a position, I am 100% sure that I'm going to get this position. I don't even have a single doubt in my mind. Women, when they apply for a position, they have so many self-limiting beliefs. They don't believe in themselves. And I understand the society, yes, but you are responsible of your own life. Let's put the society aside. Let's put your partner, your man, whoever. You are responsible for your own life. You have a role to play on this earth. You have been put here for a specific mission. Why would you shut down that mission and sit and just come up with excuses why you cannot live your life to the fullest? Because that is the problem. Women need to step up and say, this is my time, I'm going to apply. If it's a job, you apply for the job. Let me tell you, I work as a legal counsel for many years until now. And I can tell you, most of my bosses have been women, very smart women, very well-composed people. So I don't think this stigma of thinking that women cannot be in leadership position, it's totally wrong. It's an issue that women need to really work on, up their game, become more confident, understand that you have everything. There's nothing that you lack. You just need to step up and say, well, and especially in a country like this, in South Africa. In other countries in Africa, it's a challenge. I know men will really put up a fight, but in South Africa, there are plenty of women who are CEO. We see that every day. We walk, and that's one thing that actually amazed me when I moved in South Africa. I was always amazed. When you walk to an office, the person in charge is usually a woman. And then you say, wow. And I was like, I don't understand why we have more women in senior position, but then you understand that to some extent, those women have upped their game. They believe that they can do what men do because there's no difference, okay? So when you ask about what I have done, I will not go far. I'm married. I have my wife is an equal partner to me. So I believe that she has, whatever she has as a dream, she needs to go after it. I never come and stop her from fulfilling her potential. She ran 2 companies, and I'm very happy with that. I let her run whatever she needs to do. I never step in the way she managed a company. When she asked me for advice, sometimes I even tell her that I'm not the boss of this company. Well, I may not give you the right advice. You follow your intuition. You follow your gut, because remember, these women have that power of following the intuition. And intuition is always right. It's one of the 6 mental faculties that we have, that we've been given by God. And intuition is the most powerful. And women are always, they always follow the intuition. So in that respect, I leave my wife, she's my equal partner. I never make a decision regarding my household without consulting. I stress the word consulting. If my wife is not in alignment with the decision that I'm making, I am not going to make that decision, because I will not sleep and have someone who's resenting me for the decision that I've made. I want to be in peace. Other men will look at it and say it's a weakness, but trust me, in my past life, when I decided to go ahead against my wife's will, I always face a hole. So I don't want, and my advice to all the men is that you have to be equal partner with your wife. You have to involve your wife in any decision. You have to make sure that she also chases her own dream. Because at the end of the day, she has been put on this earth for a specific mission, which has nothing to do with you. Yes, she's your wife, but she is on earth. She has to fulfill a duty. And you as a man need to give her the vehicle, the opportunity to actually fulfill her potential, be supportive. And I think this is one of the things that we men lack most of the time, because we think that when a woman, let's put it this way, become the breadwinner, we feel that, we're not treated fairly. But I think it depends on how the relationship has been built from day one. Because if, for instance, you were the breadwinner, to some extent you lose your job, and your wife now is doing very well in the business, what is wrong about that? What is it really wrong that your woman should be now the breadwinner? Because at the end of the day, she is who she is because of your advice, your support. You see. But again, I will also stress to women, when you become the breadwinner, don't get a big head. Remain grounded. Respect your husband, treat him with respect, and don't even, and usually I will tell you, women who are wise enough, even the family member don't even know that she's the breadwinner. They make sure that everything just look like normal. In the house, the husband is making decisions, and they just work together. So to cut it short, in terms of how I help, I've got ladies that I empower in terms of doing mentorship with them. So I do a lot in terms of making sure that women understand the place in society. That they are equal. There's no difference between men and women. It's just some kind of cultural problem, but I do a lot in terms of helping women to really up the game and understand that we are equal partners.
I shall bring you back, Didier, for some of the things that you pointed out in there. It's a whole new discussion altogether. And we're back to you, David. I just want to ask you the same question. What have you done in your own space to empower women, and how are you, pulling men along as well to do the same?
Yeah, so Candy, it's a very thought-provoking question, actually. In fact, this whole conversation has been, because if I'm candid and honest, the truth is I'm probably not doing much. There might be a reason for that, in the sense that I don't work for a corporate. I work as a freelancer for myself, and I also work in a sector where essentially a lot of my work is, what's the right expression? It's ghost work. In other words, I do the work for other people. And so probably my only genuine contribution in terms of the workspace is, well, perhaps two things. In my previous career, where I did run a company for a couple of years. And if I think about it, that was it was a different time, really. It was before the Me Too movement. It was before social media really, really exploded. And so if I examine, my actions then, I probably didn't do enough, to be honest. We used to obviously put positions up for hire, but we never really had a conscious weighting towards hiring women. We would, I mean, our staffing complement was probably, it was female skewed because of our industry. We were in the advertising space. And so a lot of the client service positions were sort of, by default, often applied for by women. But we probably didn't do enough to empower women in those days, you know. And I guess my contribution in my current field of work is probably more in what I write, you know. So, for example, I wrote a piece recently on, well, it was essentially rooted in a book called The Athena Doctrine. And it was a book written by a guy called John Gerzimer about in 2013, actually. And his belief was that female values are rising across the world. And essentially, women need to capitalize upon that wave, but also men need to capitalize upon that wave. Men who embrace female attributes and values will ultimately be more likely to succeed in business and society of the future. And I thought that was very interesting. And so I incorporated that into a few business articles, which I wrote for some clients. So that's a sort of very small contribution that I've done. But as I say, coming back to the heart of your question, Candy, the truth is this conversation has probably served to open my eyes about how I could do more, you know, if that sort of rounds out the question.
And I really appreciate you being honest and candid with us. So, you know, they always say when you're having such an amazing time, you know, time just sort of seems to fly away. Wow. Okay. So in closing, to both of you, I would really like you to sort of give advice to both the woman and the man. But let's put it this way. I'd like you to spend a little bit more time just advising the men. Because I think, as much as Didier alluded to us in, you know, in whatever company organization that we're in, that we need to step up, which is true. We have to do our bit. But we should not forget the fact that the people who are leading the organizations, you know, in companies where it's the men at the top, you've got HR who's a man, or even the woman, okay, but it's the person who's employing, just like you've said, David, you know, it's not being aware. I think maybe some people are just not aware that this is a problem or this is a situation. So the more we have these conversations, I think it's going to, you know, let people sit back and think, oh, okay, and just people to open up and say, we need to be more aware. Like Didier also, you know, helped us see that it is important to have goals. Even just a goal of saying, no, as an organization, we need to employ more women. If it's a 60-40 ratio, what's wrong with having a 50-50 ratio? And holding people accountable. You are given a position, you don't, you know, live up to that expectation, you are out the door. Then no one is ever going to blame that company. So I guess in closing, gents, I'd like you to give advice to the women and the men. And I'll start with you, David.
Yeah, thanks, Candy. So let me perhaps start with I'll start with men. I think if you're a man and you're in a senior leadership role in a company, I think you need to be aware that there's a lot of evidence going back for at least a decade now that boards and companies that are diverse and inclusive perform better financially. And if you don't believe that, and you know, then go and do a little bit of reading. It won't take you very long, and you'll keep an open mind, and you'll discover that that's the truth. And once you discover that, then act upon that discovery, and make your organization, in whatever field it is, genuinely diverse and genuinely inclusive. And then, you know, to women, I guess, coming back to a point which I think both Didier and I have touched upon, try and perhaps nurture your self-efficacy, your self-confidence, because I think Didier made a good point that, you know, it's sometimes not necessarily about lack of opportunity. Certainly there are lack of opportunities and barriers often, but not all the time. Sometimes it is about a woman's self-confidence, and try to perhaps change your outlook, or just shift your mindset if possible towards greater networking, towards greater use of opportunities to capitalize upon the opportunities that probably are out there for you, if you can just try to inch up your self-confidence to seize those opportunities. And I know that advice sounds paternalistic, so there's a bit of an irony there, but I think everybody needs a little bit of extra self-confidence, and maybe that would be my only suggestion to women.
And Didier, from your end?
Thank you, Candy. I think in closing, my advice would be for men, the way you treat a woman should be the way you treat your mother, the way you treat your daughter. If you look at your daughter, you would like your daughter to be treated fairly. And if you look at your mother, you respect your mother. So look at your women in the workplace the same way. I think we shouldn't have double standard, because the biggest problem with us is we think in a family setting, this is how I should be behaving when I'm getting to work. This is the type of person that I should be. A good leader is the one who's authentic, like you said in the beginning. So you are the same at home, you are the same person at work. So the same way you treat your mom, the same way you look at your daughter, you want your daughter to have the best, to be treated equally. Also allow other women in the workplace to be treated equally, just like you. Give them the opportunity to be part of your team and to also step up to leadership position. And I think one of the reality is, like Dave alluded, the best team are always diverse team. I've worked in team when women are there. It's exciting. There is a lot of great input. There is a lot of growth in the team. So I don't believe in this kind of thinking that women should be just higher for lower position or things like that. Just as long as you treat your mom with respect, you treat your daughter with respect, you treat your wife, treat other women in the workplace the same way, then we will resolve this problem. And if we can tie the goals as well to the jobs, whoever is responsible for hiring, that goal needs to be there, that this person needs to make sure that there is equal representation, 50-50 in the team. Then we will be able to improve the current situation. For women, like Dave said, it's an issue about self-confidence. You need to believe more in you. You have everything to be successful. You just have to believe it and go after what you want. Unfortunately, a man will not do that. That is a work that you have to do. Anybody needs to step up and improve their self-confidence. Even men, we do have those challenges as well. So women need to learn to improve their self-confidence and believe more in their capability, because they are capable. I don't see what else can we say. They are capable. Like I've said, we have Angela Merkel. We have so many great leaders, in different countries who have impacted, people's life in different ways. So women are really capable. Just believe in yourself and go after your dream, chase your dream.
And there you have it. What a fantastic session. I did tell you that this one was going to be amazing. So to the two of you, thank you so much for making the time and joining me this morning. Thank you both.
Thank you, Candy.
Candy.
Thank you very much.
Great. So oh my goodness, I don't even know where to begin. There's so many points that, the gentleman raised that are of key importance to us women. Yes, we want to say that we are not empowered. And in some cases, depending on where you are sitting and what industry you are in, it's true, you are not empowered. But we need to play our own role. Didier gave us an example of saying 9 out of 10 times there are positions in an organization. And before we can even just put our hands up and say, I want it, we start to question ourselves. So many things start running our minds. Am I good enough for this? Can I stand up to the, the requirements needed? So I think it is time that we believe in ourselves. They both talked about being confident, and confidence has everything to do with it. Believe in yourself. You are in that organization, in whatever position you were, employed in, because they saw something in you. Let us start in believing in ourselves. Let's start having our voices heard. Let's start actually just speaking out head high and show that we are good at these things. David talked about networking. Organizations, you need to give opportunities to women to network. With us women as well, start networking with women that are up there. Start being bold enough to say, I need to learn from you. Start getting out of your own comfort zone. So for instance, if you work in company A and you admire a woman in company B, go to that company and start to network in that company. Yes, it is COVID, but my goodness, we've got virtual meetings. Nowadays, we are getting invites to meetings that we could never have had the opportunity to be a part of. The other thing that was talked about is diversity. A team that has got both men and women, when you put them together, as much as we are similar, we are different. You have different minds coming together, and what you get from there is absolutely phenomenal. Companies that have made it, Microsoft. Let's just look at Microsoft. If you look at the people that are working in Microsoft, it's men and women. Technicians that can actually sit there and say, no, let's actually, design a cell phone this way. And look at what we are using today. Look at what we are working, look at the laptops that we are using today. So on that note, what an amazing 3 different sessions that I've had. If you haven't listened to any of them, please go to any of the platforms of Eagle Wings Consultancy and listen to the different women and men that have given their own ideas on what we need to do. We are surely in the 21st century. This is not a topic that we should be talking about. You heard for yourself as well in closing that David told us that we need another 136 years to bridge the gap. Really, we can change it if each one of us makes our own standing. Didier is very passionate about leadership. He spoke about each person being responsible of their own lives. You are a leader in your own right. Whether you are not a leader in your office, you are a leader in your own space. Look at the people that follow you, your friends at places of work. You are a leader as well. So on that note, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Let us be bold in things that we do. And please be careful out there because COVID is real. But at the same time, let's live large. Thank you very much. Until next time, join me when I do send out invites. Thank you.